It was a dark and stormy night when Sarah and her friends decided to venture into the old mansion on the outskirts of town. The mansion, abandoned for decades, was infamous for its strange occurrences, whispers in the wind, flickering lights, and eerie shadows seen from the windows. Locals whispered that the mansion was haunted by a vengeful Jinn, a spirit so powerful that it could possess the living. But Sarah and her friends, always seeking adventure, weren't scared. They thought it was just another ghost story, until they stepped inside. Story begins. The mansion creaked as they stepped through the decaying doorway. The air inside was thick with dust, and the floorboards groaned under their weight. The friends split up, each exploring a different room. Sarah, however, felt an unease creeping over her as she wandered down a long hallway. She reached a room at the end of the hall, a grand parlor with broken windows and shattered furniture. But as she stepped inside, she felt something cold, almost like a chill running through her body. She brushed it off as the weather, but then she heard it. A soft whisper. "Leave." Sarah froze. The voice was low, guttural, and it felt as though it came from the very walls of the mansion. Her heart pounded in her chest as she looked around, but there was no one there. She called out to her friends, but no one answered. The whispering grew louder, more urgent. "Leave, or you will never leave." Panicked, Sarah ran down the hallway to find her friends. As she turned the corner, she was met with a horrifying sight. One of her friends, Mark, standing frozen in place, his eyes wide and unblinking. His body was rigid, as though something was controlling him. Then she saw it. A shadowy figure, standing behind him. It was tall, with glowing red eyes and a twisted, distorted face. Its form seemed to shift, constantly changing shape like smoke, but one thing remained constant, the overwhelming sense of dread that it radiated. Mark's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The figure slowly reached its hand toward him, and that's when Sarah realized it wasn't just a ghost they were dealing with. It was a Jinn. The Jinn reveals itself. The Jinn spoke, its voice a deep growl that sent shivers down Sarah's spine. "You dare enter my domain? You are trespassers. I will take you, one by one, unless you leave now." The words echoed through the mansion, reverberating in Sarah's mind. She had heard the legends, how Jinns could possess and torment the living. They could make you see things, control your body, and even steal your soul. Sarah's legs shook as she backed away, but the Jinn wasn't done. The shadows around it began to grow, creeping toward her, enveloping the entire room. The air became thick, suffocating, and she could hear her friends' desperate cries for help, their voices distorted and barely audible. In a panic, Sarah ran toward the front door, but it slammed shut in her face with a deafening bang. The mansion seemed to close in on her, its walls shaking as if alive. The whispers filled her ears again, this time a chorus of voices. "Leave. Now. Or stay forever." The escape desperate, Sarah remembered an old folk tale her grandmother had told her about banishing a Jinn. One had to speak its name aloud to wake on it, but no one knew the name of this particular Jinn. Sarah gathered all her courage, standing tall and shouting into the darkness, "I know who you are. You are a Jinn of destruction, and I will not be your victim." For a moment, there was silence. The air grew still, and then, the shadowy figure began to recoil. The glowing red eyes faded, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop. The Jinn let out a blood-curdling scream, a sound that shook Sarah to her core. But before it could reach her, the front door creaked open. In one final, desperate move, Sarah ran out of the mansion, not looking back. The last thing she heard was the Jinn's voice, faint but chilling, "You may have escaped this time, but I will return." Conclusion: Sarah and her friends never spoke of the mansion again. They left town that very night, unable to erase the memory of the dark, shadowy figure with glowing red eyes. To this day, the mansion stands abandoned, its windows forever dark, waiting for the next group of unsuspecting souls who dare to enter. But if you ever find yourself near that mansion, remember Sarah's warning, never enter. Because once the Jinn knows your name, it will always find you.